What does baseball have to say to our culture today? Adam, let's talk about that. Folks, welcome to the Baseball Brewhaha. Another week. Baseball's underway. If you're a Mariners fan, you gotta be feeling good right now. There's probably like seven of you in the world out there. That's not true, but if you're a Rockies fan, which is in my neck of the woods, you are on the opposite end of the world.
Yeah.
It's been a tough go. They won two in a row last week.
Well, they're aiming for that number one draft pick.
Well, it's not a guarantee anymore. It's a lottery.
Yeah, but they're trying to get more balls in the spinny thing.
Yeah. More balls in the spinny thing. Indeed. So, well, we're not talking about Mariners or Rockies per se. We're talking more. I got my baseball philosophy. This has been an interesting read. It's fun. The most recent one I was kind of working on was talking about particularly the Negro Leagues and some of Black culture and kind of what led to that. And I'm reading along here, and there's a section called "The Gift of Baseball" that this author writes, and I'm going to read a little section here, and what he's talking about is it ends up sort of being this thing where you kind of feel like baseball really is meaningful and powerful in culture. And I feel like I don't know that that's the same today. And so I kind of want to unpack that a little bit. Maybe not even just from the perspective of baseball, but have there been similar cultural moments in other sports as well that so anyway, um here's what he said. My grandfather wanted me to play baseball when I was a child, and not until my adult years did I understand why. His heroes were great baseball players such as Jackie Robinson, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, and Satchel Paige, to name but a few. These men were the role models and the celebrities of my grandfather's youth. While their efforts belong to American history, these Black baseball stars were the culmination of generations of African Americans who sought full citizenship, who were often denied the right to pursue the American dream. Individual athletes such as Robinson became lionized examples of courage and dignity, possessing wholesome morals and values that all could admire and emulate. Um, and so I'll stop there. I was reading along, and um, as I read that, it just hit me that like baseball, we didn't really live through baseball as this, but baseball used to be sort of a major cultural piece, which made like particular thinking about Black civil rights and that kind of thing. Jackie Robinson breaking or being allowed to play um, was such a huge deal. And I think it's hard for us to understand how big of a deal that really was. Initial thoughts.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into that, I think, but you're right. They're the way that baseball is and baseball stars are now is very different culturally.
Mhm.
And uh I don't know that there will ever be a time again when baseball players are viewed in the way that Jackie Robinson, Willie Mays, even some of the players from our youth And really
Hmm.
since the advent of social media and the globalization of the game and some other factors,
Hmm.
I think it's a completely different era.
It is for sure. It's definitely a different era. It got me thinking, or have there been or will there be other sort of big cultural moments like Jackie Robinson? Um, Jackie Robinson playing Major League Baseball. I mean, obviously, we're still dealing with race tensions and difficulties in our world today. Um, Different, perhaps in some ways different, some ways the same. Um, but Jackie Robinson playing Major League Baseball was a massive cultural shift. And it got me thinking about what have been other cultural moments in sport. And so, one that I thought about that's more maybe specific to baseball or just kind of affects pro athletes was Kurt Flood and the stance that he took, essentially giving up his, like, sacrificing his baseball career for the future of other major league players.
Hmm.
The other one I thought about was Colin Kaepernick and that everything that transpired there. I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on either of those topics, um, but those were kind of the closest things that I could think of, in particular in our day and age. Colin Kaepernick um, situation, kind of what what came out of that later, um, seemed to be to me maybe the closest thing to sort of a cultural moment. I don't know. Are there any things that you're um that are coming to mind in terms of a cultural moment?
The first thing that came to my mind was the 1968 Olympics, with Tommy
Okay.
Smith and John Carlos
Mm-hmm.
on the podium giving the Black Power salute,
Mm-hmm.
a big moment in the civil rights era. Um, for sure that, uh, the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964, but that was a significant cultural shift. Um, I think, the Colin Kaepernick one is interesting because um, what maybe began there, his name perhaps, and maybe this is true of Kurt Flood as well, hasn't sort of persisted in the same way, as far as being tied to um, a particular event or a cultural movement or shift in the way that Jackie Robinson was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, yeah, I think like there have been uh, smaller ones as well, that I think about. Um, Gosh, I mean, well, Muhammad Ali was like a walking cultural movement, as well. Boxing was enormous at that time. And so
Mm-hmm.
Ali's protests of the Vietnam War in particular was a huge cultural, not just moment, but event,
Mm-hmm.
um, in our country's history for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the big ones that come to mind for me
Mm-hmm.
with any sort of like historical significance in the way that perhaps Jackie Robinson was.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, so going back a little bit to the Colin Kaepernick, it makes me wonder a little bit like how, like what role, like when we look at where we're at historically, and like you think about George Floyd and how big of a, obviously George not an athlete, but that event took place. That's had a big moment. Makes me wonder a little bit like how much of that, of what we've seen in terms of the social justice movements that we've seen over the last decade. We're about 9 years removed from Colin Kaepernick, his kneel during that kind of started all of that. It's a little bit interesting to know, to think like how is history, because we're, the thing that's challenging is like when you're living in it, you kind of feel the ripples a little bit. You feel like George Floyd was a much bigger moment, in terms of how those came out. But how's that how's that going to play out? What's history going to look back on and say? I mean, is that moment that Colin Kaepernick had even going to be a part of the conversation?
Hmm.
So that's one thing. I don't, obviously we don't know the answer. We don't know how history is going to play out. The thing I was thinking about, I hadn't given this a ton of thought, but I had, the question was bouncing around in my head. Is there, do you think, could you envision, uh, I mean, maybe baseball, but let's more specifically say just sport in general, having, like, do you think there is a social issue as big as the civil rights world that Jackie Robinson stepped into, and how important that was? Do you think that social issue exists in our country today in such a way that sport could sort of speak into that issue in the way that Jackie Robinson did, or the way that all that unfolded?
I don't. Um,
Yeah.
and partly because sport doesn't speak into people's lives in the way that it did at that time. Um, and and also um, that that moment culturally was bigger than, I mean, bigger than anything I can imagine in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Could something be different some other time in the future? Sure. I mean, we see uh,
Mhm.
racism and apartheid and like that still exists in the world.
Mhm.
And, you know,
Uh,
could could
mhm.
theoretically could sport, like, here's one, could sport be a catalyst for an overthrow of the government? Maybe. I mean, maybe. I
Yeah.
mean, that'd be a big deal. Will it happen? I don't, probably not, but could it? Sure. I suppose I could see that.
Yeah, it does make me wonder, is it more likely that we'd see something like that on it, like on an international, like in an international setting, either like particular country or with a global issue of some kind? I don't know what that would, like. I mean, maybe World Cup is probably the only event, maybe,
Hmm.
that's probably got enough like international something, international,
Yeah.
like gusto for something like that to happen. which is kind of interesting because World Cup moves around to different countries, and there there's some countries that are in pretty poor, have humanitarian rights issues and that kind of thing. So, but I, I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. I have a hard time seeing. I just don't know that issue to the degree of what it was in America um exists. I do think like the Colin Kaepernick thing and you know later is maybe as close as we're gonna get, at least maybe in our time, maybe our lifetime. I don't know. I mean, obviously we can't predict the future. So um I could see, I think kind of to your point about the overthrowing a government, if there were a government, a president or a government that sort of said basically we're going to circumvent the Constitution and we're going to like take over and do a hostile takeover kind of a thing, and like maybe that's a arena where that happens. I don't know, but
Yeah, but I don't know that I see players taking the lead on that either, on something like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting because it feels. I mean, listening to some of the rhetoric around baseball, which is kind of heartbreaking because I feel like most of the conversation is around there's probably not going to be a season in 2027. And I like to deny that that's reality, but like my understanding from little pieces that I know about CBA and that kind of thing, collective bargaining agreement, um, is that it's sort of at a breaking point, and there's, I think, for the players to get the things that they want is going to require them to kind of go into a full stalemate with the owners. So so it feels like kind of the any big issues are more like directly are more Kurt Flood than they are Jackie Robinson, in the sense it's
Mhm.
affecting baseball, not culture.
Yeah, and now sort of in part because of Kurt Flood,
Mm-hmm.
um, the perception of that type of work stoppage is 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 somewhat akin to like politics, like who who's got the right message, and these people are being unfair and that's unfair, and they're asking for too much and they're not giving enough money. And so
Mm-hmm.
um you know so fans end up with the common sentiment of the the billionaires aren't giving the millionaires enough money, and
Yep.
there's not a lot of pity to go around for that sort of situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're going back to 1994 when, you know, play stopped, and it took, you know, in the eyes of many, it took until 1998 with McGuire and Sosa before baseball kind of regained what it had lost in terms of
Hmm.
fan interest and that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, work stoppage under those circumstances is it's it's difficult to, yeah, as a fan, to feel like you can connect. So in some ways I think maybe like somebody who works as part of a union, probably has a better sense of how that feels and the tension between, like, especially if you get to a spot where you get in a stalemate and you might need a strike.
Hmm.
Um, we had, not in our town, but in Colorado, there was a grocery chain that had many people went on strike, and like the tension of that because you don't get paid while you're striking, and you're good family, your family to feed, and so that's tough. That's a tough spot. So, but well, folks, we got to get back to something we haven't done in a while. So it's a little hard left turn. Sorry about
Well,
that.
I was thinking we don't have to go hard left turn because I was thinking about you're just talking about the work stoppage, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking back to 94 when the season was canceled
Hmm.
and you and I crushed.
Hmm.
Baseball, why? And so
Hmm.
what do? You find ways to fill the baseball gap, the
Yeah.
void in your soul.
Hmm.
And so where did we naturally turn? We, of course, played baseball, but
Hmm.
we turned to packs of baseball cards.
Hmm.
And
Well,
so,
and at that time, that work stoppage happened in August, so we were done with baseball for the year.
yeah,
So we're watching baseball and that kind of thing. But in the absence of baseball, our season never stopped.
yeah,
I think we had moved to Garfield by that time. Um, but um, but we were still playing. You and I would go, we put
yeah,
rosters together and we go play
yep.
baseball. So that didn't stop.
Yeah, we use our cards to build a
Hmm.
team.
Yeah. So we felt like, go ahead, Adam. I think,
Yeah, so we're gonna rip cards and in the spirit of building our own rosters to go play during the work stoppage. Please no work stoppage in the future. We're
mhm,
gonna see, we're both gonna open a pack at 88 Donruss
mhm.
and see which pack would create the best team.
Yeah. The thing that's tough about 1988 is I always, it's hard for me sometimes to open this because there's no Griffey. This
Yeah,
is pre-Griffey. And so it's like the fact that I can't pull a Griffey, it feels a bit like, you know, we're gonna do our best, but it's always gonna be second tier.
yeah. Well, who are we looking for here? We got Canseco,
So
Maddox.
yeah, you got Ricky, Tony. Yeah, my son ripped a pack of Upper Deck 90. I was
Yeah.
hoping for the Griffey, but I got a sweet Ricky and a sweet Tony card out of that. So Tony Gwynn, that is.
Okay.
Um, so
Well, we should go for it at the same time here.
all right, still.
We got our Stan Musial puzzle piece.
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh, mine's like connected to yours basically. I
Oh yeah.
can't. I'm not doing that very well, but anyway, my glare is bad. It's bad. So
Okay. Well, leading off my pack, fittingly, good leadoff hitter, Luis Polonia.
yeah, yeah, yes. For me, also an Oakland Athletic, Rick Honeycutt
Okay. Pitching.
pitching. Yeah,
Okay. Bring in some thunder here. Going Steve Balboni.
former Mariner, Steve Belmoni.
Yeah.
We're going Melito Perez.
Okay. You're leaning in on the pitching here.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm gonna bring Matt Young to pitch here, former Mariner.
okay. It continues. Doug Jones
Yeah. Okay.
continues.
I'm gonna bring some more bats. Ron Kittle,
Ron Kittle.
home run
Okay.
hitter, hit 35 bombs in 1983.
We continue the lean.
Yeah.
Tim Belcher,
Yes. Okay.
former Mariner.
There you go.
Hmm.
Okay. Filling out the team here, John Marzano catching.
Bro, I mean,
Going pitching.
Bill Gullickson.
Strong with the pitching. There you go.
Bill Gullickson,
Okay. We're going to get Mike Henneman pitching here.
bro. I can't. I mean, I can't. Jeff Sellers, Red Sox. I mean,
Good.
I'm 6 for 6 on pitchers.
Okay. We got another catcher here, Bill Schroeder
Okay.
or Schrader. I don't know. One of the two.
All right. Okay. We got another pitcher.
Yeah.
Doyle Alexander.
Uh-huh. Okay. I'm pitching it up here. Mark Williamson.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I 8 cards deep. I have a non-pitcher.
Yes.
It's the guy you would always want on your team. It's Brad Kaminsk.
Okay.
Yeah, I cannot see my cards at all. I'm sorry, folks. I'm
Brad
sorry.
Kaminsky.
Brad Kaminsk.
Okay. I got another pitcher, Diamond King, Tommy John.
Oh, Tommy John, the
And
name of this era of baseball. Oh, now we're getting the players. The only problem
uh-huh.
is that they're so generic.
Yeah.
You got Rene Gonzalez,
Yeah.
infielder. Can't even give him a position. Just infield.
Go checklist here.
Yeah. We got another infielder,
Yeah.
Randy Reddy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We are
Going is gonna fill out my outfield here. We got Kurt Ford,
not Kurt Flood,
not
Kurt
to be confused.
Ford. Okay, now if you're gonna get some players, you might as well get a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
You might as well get the Wizard.
Oh. Woo.
There you go.
Okay, we're going outfield some more with Brian Dayette.
Now we're filling this thing in. Now we're filling this thing in.
Okay, what do we got?
We got Glenn Wilson now field.
Okay. I'm gonna pitch Brian Fisher here again.
Mm-hmm. We're going outfield again with Billy Hatcher.
Yeah. Okay, we got second, third base, Damaso Garcia.
Mm-hmm. I mean, why don't you go with another Hall of Famer,
Ooh,
Carlton Fisk?
wow. Why don't you do it? And then we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna round out my pack with first baseman Nick Asaski.
Yeah, I'm gonna round mine out with a player who proved to be a very uh good player later, Mike Stanley, catcher. Okay. So I that was a big comeback in
It
terms of
was.
actually I was all pitchers on the front end, filled out my team on the back end, but I might still be short players. How are we gonna put this roster together? I think I might have just enough.
Well,
I gotta kind of budget on my first base a little bit. I will say that. And I have no designated hitter. But
yeah, I
we could go National League. We'll go 1988 National League. Who's your pitcher that you're gonna have hit?
my pitcher that I'm gonna have hit, it has to be a National League pitcher.
Well, not
Or
necessarily, just National League
hmm?
rules.
I mean, it's hard to pass up the Diamond King. Tommy John must have
Oh,
had
for sure.
a good year to be the Diamond King.
Hmm. Yeah. So let's see. Boy, this is tough here on
Boy, this reading the back of this Tommy John card, he was 44 years old. 23 years
44.
of major league service. He is the epitome of the best of medical science and personal grit.
Hmm.
In
Yeah, I'm
80 in
trying.
87, he won 13 games. Wow.
All right,
Okay.
let's see. Pitching wise, I mean, if you're going starter, it's a little tough here. Bill Gullickson, Doyle Alexander. I mean, you just have kind of mid pitching here. Rick Honeycutt's pretty good. Bro, check this out. Rick Honeycutt, 1983,
Mm-hmm.
214 innings pitched,
Yeah.
3.03 ERA. So that's pretty good. 74 strikeouts.
What?
It's 214 innings, 74 strikeouts. That
That's
is insane. Like
yeah.
these these pitchers don't exist today. I mean, Kyle Hendricks is kind of the closest thing you get to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's wild. He tightened it up later. 187, 139 innings, 102 strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
So he figured something out.
Yeah.
So I think, am I going to go with, I think I'll go with, I think I'll go with Doyle. I'm going to go Doyle.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so we got a few minutes here before wrap up. So I'll be frank. My team is, I get Carlton Fisk, Ozzie Smith, Mike Stanley turned into a good player. I mean, in 1988, he was 2 years in.
Yeah.
So he wasn't, at that point, he wasn't a player. Glenn Wilson, decent player, a regular, but not great. Billy Hatcher, same kind of deal, pretty good, not elite. And then you got Brad Kaminsky, Rene Gonzalez, and Randy Reddy, who are all utility guys. So
Mm-hmm.
what do you have? I mean, I got a pretty I feel like I have the Seattle Mariners of 1988 is what I feel like I
Yeah.
have right now.
And I might have the White Sox or the Rockies.
Really?
Yeah.
It's that bad? I wasn't paying that close attention
Yeah,
growing.
I thought I got off to a strong start with Luis Polonia and Steve Balboni, who are yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they're fine. They're fine. They're
they're
they're everyday players,
every
but
player,
not elite. They're not elite.
but that I
Is that
peaked.
it?
I peaked early. I mean, I got Nick Asaski, Damaso Garcia, Brian Dayette, Kurt Ford, Bill Schroeder, and John Marzano. I mean,
That's yeah, I think I'm with you. I mean, it's like yeah, I think my roster, I mean, Carlton
yeah,
Fisk alone, it's like Cal Raleigh hitting in your lineup.
yeah, and Ozzie Smith. I
Yeah,
mean,
Ozzie Smith, yeah.
one of the greatest defensive players ever.
Hmm.
Not, you know, good enough offensive player.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is he's stealing more than 30
Yeah,
bags,
yeah,
doesn't
I know.
does not strike out. I mean,
Right.
he hit 303 in 1987, 30 so 600 at bats, 36 strikeouts.
It's crazy.
Talking about 43 bags, that's 75 RBI,
Yeah.
40 doubles, 100 runs, 182 hits. I mean, it's no, you're not getting any power. Four balls. You're not getting any power, but you know, you're getting your elite top of the lineup, get
Hmm.
on table setter, you know,
Yeah.
for Glenn Wilson. He's hitting 14 bombs, Billy Hatcher. Billy Hatcher, what are we talking about here? 296, 53 steals,
Hmm.
564 AB. So, I mean, you got some guys that could do some things.
Yeah.
You got other guys who cannot do things.
Mm-mm.
Brad Kaminsky, no. Mike Stanley, no sample size, not big enough. Renee Gonzalez, no. Randy Reddy. I mean, part-time player Randy Reddy, 309, 54 ribs,
Mm-hmm.
350 ABs. I mean, he's got a role to play.
Yeah.
So yeah, I might give the edge. I mean, you might have the pitching edge. It's Tommy John. Doyle
I don't,
Alex.
I mean, a 45-year-old Tommy John.
Yeah. I mean, Doyle Alexander was solid, but
There it is.
there it is. Well, that was fun. I mean, again, a couple of Hall of Famers. There's no Griffey to be had.
Yeah.
It's okay. They're
We're out
people
of t
too.
we're out of time, folks. Thanks
We
for
are.
hanging with us.
Thanks for hanging with us. We'll see you next time.